Welcome back. Today we'll look at the SIG SHR970 and also at a Rossler just for comparative purposes, as well as Sauer 80. It's actually a Carl Gustav 3000, well marketed by them. But before I get into the rifles, I wanted to say once in a while I run into my viewers. It's always a pleasure meeting you in person. And I had the particular pleasure of running into a viewer. His name's Patrick. He's a lawyer. I hope it's okay if I mention your profession. And he mentioned to me how much he likes the SIG SHR 970. I have the rifle here. We'll look at it in a moment. But I've received lots of messages over time, and I've owned these SIGs. They're good. They're apparently discontinued. They were very popular. They have a switch barrel capability, which makes them kind of interesting. But I thought I would explain, Patrick, how these things all in a way came about, and I don't always go into the greatest detail, but we have some ground to cover today. So this is the SIG SHR970. I want to make sure that I have the caliber correct. And this is in 7mm Remington Magnum. And I have no idea when this rifle was made. I have to be careful how I hold it because it's actually disassembled. The stock, as you probably know, Patrick, or anybody that's changed the barrels on these, the stock is very similar to any of the current polymer stocks. It actually reminded me a lot of the Savage Axis or Axis, and the people that have requested a review of the Axis, I finally have one. I also have a Mossberg Patriot in the studio somewhere here. Behind me, to my right, that would be your left of course, is a Mauser 66S carbine, which is very interesting. It's an early model. If I remember to pick it up, I'll show you. I apologize for the clutter. Some of you say I have too much clutter, and you're right, I do. What happens is my workbench is fully occupied. Actually, every surface is fully occupied. So then the studio becomes the next stop. In the foreground, you'll see a very interesting rifle from Sweden. It's called a Lakelander. And a Lakelander, I think I can pronounce properly. There's another one that's very similar, of Warburger. They have rotary magazines, but they're built in. Anyway, we'll look at that. Anyway, SHR970. I talked to you about the typical stock. So why do people love this action and rifle? And they must, because I stopped counting at like 14 different messages. It becomes hard to recover messages after a while. So the action is undoubtedly very slick. And you know, if you handle a Mauser 98 or anything with a claw extractor, it's not going to be this smooth because the claw is an interference. But if you build a bolt like this, where the bolt body is the same diameter roughly as the lugs, of course there's nothing to cause friction or wobbling or anything like that. So we've got an excellent bolt body. We've got 3 locking lugs and a typical Sako or Seiko. It doesn't seem to matter how I pronounce Sako or Seiko. I get lots of corrections, so I try to say it both ways, and I don't mind any of your corrections is fine. Gas relief port here. Anyway, it runs very smooth, and I mean, undoubtedly it's an excellent rifle. The Swiss have been making rifles for centuries, and they make excellent rifles. This is no exception. The take apart, I simplified. I took out all the screws beforehand. We've got a typical, unexceptional, but metal magazine, so that's nice. The trigger guard is aluminum. As you know, I check these things with a magnet. And then the more interesting part, because this is conventional gun making, actually this bolt is quite similar to the Rossler, which we've reviewed. We looked at these before. These you don't see on this side of the water very often. There's the Rossler bolt. I'll just get them in view. So you can see you have a full diameter bolt body on the Rossler. You got 2 gas relief ports, maybe more. And this one has a simplified lug system. These secondary lugs, I mean, it's quite possible that the machining is so precise that they're getting full engagement on all these surfaces. I never really saw the need for it. If this is connecting, and they've got 3 locking lug surfaces to engage in the barrel, and I'll explain why in the barrel in a minute, then that's more than sufficient to handle the pressure, which is really just a microsecond, as you know. Once the bullet exits the muzzle, the pressure drops to 0. Like everything else on this planet anyway, everything equalizes. So this is the Rossler, and I'll just leave it here because I've got a great camera crew, and they kind of wander around and look at things, which is what I was hoping they would do. You can see this is held by 2 bolts, and this barrel slides out, and you can switch the barrel on the Rossler as well. This is an aluminum receiver. This bolt runs very smoothly too. It's slightly smoother than the SIG, and I established that by having it's not a scientific test. I had a few people, work the bolt and tell me which one they thought was smoother. Not that a smooth bolt is the end of the world either, by the way. It's nice to have. It's not that critical. Anyway, getting back to the point, hopefully, the action comes out of the stock, which I'll just set down here. And here we have where the story gets interesting. So you can see, I mean, these are not identical actions, but you can see that this is a similar concept to this. And I took a quick run to one of the distributors I know, and the Zauer 101, I had a Zauer 202 Forest, and they all have this same concept, which is quite different from the American concept, and that is that you construct an action which isn't that difficult to machine out of aluminum, and you capture the barrel with these screws. Now I've taken these out. In the case of the SIG, I don't even know whether you're supposed to take these off, but completely, but I did. Anyway, you just insert them and tighten them up, and then it's very simple to understand. You're clamping the barrel in place in the action. So there are no threads. And I took out this barrel, but it's just hand tight from a Mannlicher Schönauer. And that's the original system for installing a barrel. You thread it in. Now we'll take out the barrel of the SIG. I hope I have this arm strength today, and I do. And there's the modern way of machining the back of the barrel. So as opposed to the Mannlicher Schönauer, which is, I just took this out. I have Mauser 98s. I have lots of actions, but this one's kind of an interesting one. When I rotate this bolt closed, this bolt is locked in the receiver ring, and it's coincidental that I thread this barrel into this receiver ring. I could thread any barrel into this receiver ring. The bolt will not move backwards until I lock it, because there are shoulders in the receiver ring that lock the action. And I hope I'm being clear about that, because it's quite a difference from this concept, which seems to be the modern European way. And I invite you to go and have a look at the 101 and 100 and all these other, I don't know them as well as you do, but the concept here is you make an aluminum receiver, although apparently they're available in steel, and the barrel just slides in. So then the people say, well, if the bolt doesn't lock in the receiver, you can see there's no way. The bolt lugs are floating in air. So what is the receiver doing? Well, the receiver is just holding the barrel in alignment. That's why they can have these flimsy mechanisms. The barrel isn't threaded in. And this facilitates the switch barrel design. And from an engineering point of view, I don't know if you can see it, but inside the receiver ring there's a ledge. That ledge is what transfers recoil forces from the barrel to the receiver, and then from the receiver to the stock. It's quite an interesting idea. So the back of this barrel, right here, transfers recoil forces to the ledge inside the receiver. And the locking lugs are in the barrel. The bolt actually, I mean, you probably all know this, but I have lots of viewers of different ages, different levels of expertise. But in full respect of everybody, the bolt just locks in here. And then when you fire, hopefully they've machined everything properly, and the recoil forces are transferred to the action. The bolt can't fly back because it's locked in here. So that's the concept. And you can buy different barrels as a consequence. In fact, you can buy many different components, sort of a modular idea. Do I like these receivers? They're okay. I think, yeah, it's probably worth mentioning. See this gap? If you put the barrel in and then tighten these bolts too much, I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a piece of metal in here. This rifle did not come with any washers or any spacer. But if you tighten it too much, and these screws look weak in the Rostler, this is the corresponding thing, but they're not weak. There's enough force in here to put a tremendous amount of pressure on the top of the receiver. And we've got a couple of weak points here caused by drilling and tapping for the scope. So when you tighten the barrel, just follow the instructions that come with the rifle, which I don't have. But don't over tighten these, because you'll close this gap. And if you close the gap too much, because this will close more than the diameter of the barrel, if you follow me, that force has to go somewhere. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. But the SIG is discontinued, and I'm not sure how long they'll stick with this system. It's kind of a clever way of making rifles, but I'm not so sure it's the best way of making rifles. These aluminum receivers are light for sure, and then I'm probably boring you by now with my discussion of triggers. I'll just say these are regular triggers. They're all serviceable, or else they wouldn't be on the market. And over travel and so forth is well within limits, so it's excellent. Some of you might have noticed this Zauer on the table, which I mentioned earlier. So I put it here because this was made in 70 something. It's a 308. This one has no locking lugs that are visible. It has locking flaps that turn out when you close the bolt. They lock into here. Anyway, we covered that another time, and you can read about that. I actually just took this rifle apart to show you this system, which was one of the earliest applications of this clamping concept, which makes headspace easier. Now, on the Zauer, they decided to put the screw that retains the action in the stock right there. Maybe it could have gone somewhere else. Anyway, it's a easier way to establish headspace, but this barrel is still close, well, not really, but it's closer to a conventional way of establishing proper headspace and fitting than this. So I think probably they saw this and then they thought, well, why do we bother having the barrel really part of the action? We can just slide it in and out and have it retained with these two screws here and here. And I didn't take apart a Zauer 101. I don't even own one of those rifles, but you can have a look, and if you see that the rifle you have has this kind of thing happening for the bolt handle, then you have a variant of this. And I'm not sure if this turned into this or this turned into this, but you know, different companies are using the same concept. This one has a smaller opening here. This one's probably a little bit better on the SIG. Anyhow, you report that the accuracy is fantastic for the SIG. So that means they've done great machining and the tolerances are tight. These are gas relief ports again that correspond with these openings on the receiver, so that if something goes wrong with gas, there's a place for the gas to go, and we've got one on the bolt as well. So as usual, it's quite an interesting thing, at least for somebody that likes guns, to look at these different features. Everything else on the SIG is, well, everything on the SIG is fine. I told you this is aluminum, the magazine is steel. Probably I should just say this is the Rossler, so they went to a polymer, and I don't know if I have the Rossler magazine. Yeah, this is it. That's the Rossler magazine, and it's locked into this assembly, which is fine, and retained by screws. So altogether, a very interesting rifle, and again, on the used market, I can't think of why one would not buy one of these. This is the Rossler, I mistook them, that's the Sauer, and here's the Sig. And yeah, everything about it is good. It's that modern system, and the slickness is a function, somebody asked me, it's a function of the aluminum and the configuration of the bolts. So I hope I answered that question. So a little bit of a scattered presentation today. And of all these guns, we've got the Sig SHR, we've got the Rossler, we've got the Sauer, or Carl Gustaf, and the Lakelander, and then we have the Mannlicher Schönauer. And obviously there's no comparison. If you can get a rifle based on this action, you really have something. This even has a rotary magazine, and I think I reviewed this before, but I can review it again and maybe do a better job. Extraordinary action, just a legendary achievement, and long after these are all recycled into something else, the Mannlicher will keep working, but it's just so expensive to make them for some reason. Unless somebody started again, which is possible, for some reason they can't make these and offer decent rifles based on this action, which is a pity. Some of them have double set triggers. Anyway, one shouldn't live in the past, but the past is an interesting place. So I leave that all with you. Patrick, I hope I did a good job reviewing this 970. I don't know whether I would rush to buy one of these in 9.3 by 62. That's it. There are other things going on in that relationship between the barrel and the receiver, which really just is an aluminum collar holding a barrel in place. But there probably will be people telling me they own 458s, and I don't dispute that. I could well be mistaken. Modern technology is always surprising. As always, thank you for watching. Please subscribe. What am I trying to reach? Trying to reach 8,000 subscribers. If you could help me get there, it would be a good thing. And Patreon is interesting. I think we'll be shooting some videos for that as we head into the holiday season. Hope everything else is going well for you in your homes and with your families. And we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.